Thank you. If we just take the names, please, for the apologies whilst we're waiting for things up here. So any apologies?
Yeah, I'll give apologies for Councillor Peterberry, Councillor Craig Hanaway, Councillor Tim Gray, Councillor Martin Fletcher, Councillors Philip Thompson, Councillor Stuart Smith. Thank you.
Earl, Councillor Earl, White, Donoghue, Clark, Craven.
Kerry, councillors. Oh. Charming. Councillors Salvin, Hart, Martin, and Justin Thompson. Thank you.
And Councillor Graham Jeffrey.
There is the green form for any declarations of interest. If anybody would like to declare anything, it's circulated around. We'll move to agenda item 4 to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of May. Can I have a proposer and a seconder of the minutes of the meeting, please? Councillor Brown, seconder. Councillor Richardson, thank you. Members are asked to note the attendance matrix from the last meeting. Firstly, I'd like to thank Father Edwards for saying prayers at today's meeting. And I am pleased to welcome representatives from the Royal Yorkshire Regiment to today's meeting. They are here to present the Council with a silver salver marking the 20th anniversary of the regiment's official formation on the 6th of June 2006, when 3 regiments, including the Green Howards, amalgamated to form what is now the Royal Yorkshire Regiment. We are also proud that the regiment holds freedom of the borough. We'll now move to the presentation. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that Saturday is Armed Forces Day, and there will be events taking place throughout the day on Redcar High Street to celebrate our armed forces. I'd like to finish with the Tees Valley Education and Dormanstown Primary School have received the prestigious Silver Pearson Award, recognising outstanding educators across the UK for exceptional teaching, leadership and impact on students' lives. Congratulations to them on this fantastic achievement. Are there any announcements from the leader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome to your first business meeting. You're doing very well. The summer months are a very important time for our local economy, with visitors coming to our borough from across the region and further afield. I'm pleased to report the first of our major events, the Redcar Kite Festival, was once again a great success. Despite challenging weather conditions, an impressive 25,000 people attended the Sunday alone. It was also a big success in terms of spreading the word about our borough as a tourist destination, as well as being widely covered in the regional media. Our own social media posts, packed with positive images and messages, reached the screens of over 450,000 people. Our next key event is Armed Forces Day this Saturday. I know many will be attending to show their appreciation for our servicemen and women, past and present. We take our commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant, a pledge to support our military personnel, very seriously, and I know this is an issue that has clear support right across the political spectrum. I'm proud to say the Council has doubled our number of Armed Forces liaison officers with the work of our Armed Force champion, Councillor Taylor. Other dates for your diaries this summer include the Festival of Thrift, will take place on the 4th and 5th of July. There's fantastic administration brought back to the borough. Sorry. And the Between the Tides Festival on the 22nd and 23rd of August. There's also a packed summer programme, events and fun activities including involving dinosaurs and pirates at Kirkleatham Museum, sunset markets on Majuba, and even an event dedicated to puddings, Redcar Dessert Festival. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Well, is there any announcements from Cabinet members? To receive any announcements from the Chief Executive?
No announcements, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
To agenda item 8, which is questions from the public, which none have been received. So we'll move to agenda item 9, which is to consider and agree any reports from the Cabinet. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have the criminal checks for elected members policy in front of us. This has gone through Governance Committee, Resources Scrutiny Committee and Cabinet. Effectively, the Cabinet have not sought to modify this in any great way because we know this was cross-party supported at previous full council. The only amendment that the Cabinet have made since this was in the full council meeting previously is that we have added a requirement for enhanced checks, enhanced criminal records checks for the Cabinet member for adults and the Cabinet member for children, along the lines of the panels that are already listed in the report where an enhanced check would be required. So the report in general means that all councillors would be subject to a basic DBS check and there would be enhanced DBS checks for a number of committees, including corporate parent, in adoption and fostering, social care panels or any education and appeal panels. We've added the Cabinet members, as I've already mentioned. In terms of the handling of this, the monitoring officer can view the DBS certificates. The group leader will be given the results of the test but not the underlying data, and there's the opportunity to appeal should any member need to now or in the future. So the recommendation from the council to, from the Cabinet to the council is that the draft policy is adopted with the amendment to include the Cabinet members for adult and children's services, and we recommend that the Code of Conduct be modified to include a reference that councillors must comply with protocols and policies set out in the Constitution. So I move the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Have we a seconder for the report? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want some clarity from the Cabinet member just on the process of paying for this. One of the questions from one of our group members is not here today, just said he just needed a bit of clarity on whether he was having to physically go out there and pay for it, or it was something that was going to get claimed back through members' allowances. So that would be interesting. And then just for the benefit of anyone who wants to know, what is the punishment for a councillor that doesn't undergo a DBS check? Because I think that's important that everyone knows that there's not really anything that anyone can do if someone decides they don't want to do it in the first place. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Nightingale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I do this as the chairman of the Resources Scrutiny Committee? There were three salient issues that actually were mentioned at the Resources Committee. The first was, when will this be introduced? And I think we need some clarity on that. Secondly, the issue of who pays for this. I'll just express a personal view. I think it should be the council that does this, because it's the council that is being protected, and it is the council's services that are being protected, and so therefore I think it should be the council that pays. And I think that was the view of the committee as well. Am I right? Nod your head. The second issue, there was quite a vociferous comment by one of the members of the committee about whether there should or should not be an appeal. And the member of the committee, and I think I do agree with him, said that there should not be an appeal because it's a statement of fact, and therefore there's no dispute. Obviously, if someone has actually had a criminal record and has actually been to Damascus, well, that may well be a pretty good basis for their rehabilitation. But overwhelmingly, of course, the committee did actually support what the council is actually doing in response to a motion that was already in place for the council. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to clarify one or two things.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Massey.
I will do my best to sum up, although I don't have all the answers in terms of what the next step is in terms of payment, but I can answer some of Councillor Davies' questions first. In terms of who is paying for this in the policy that's in front of us now, it's for elected members to pay for this. If it is a basic check, the expectation is that the elected member would pay out of their own pocket in terms of a private engagement, but obviously with the council's support. If it is an enhanced check, the elected member has to apply through NERIO, through the council's portal, and then that money could be recovered from the elected member through their salary, through their payments, their member's allowance. In terms of the punishment, I think you're correct about this, Councillor Davies. The punishment for non-compliance is effectively you cannot sit on certain committees on the council, but it is not an automatic bar to standing as a councillor. But equally, I think the enhanced checks are in place in order to ensure that people who have access to sensitive data, particularly to do with adults or children or vulnerable people, cannot sit on those committees unless they get a clean check back, effectively, or an approved check back. In terms of Councillor Nightingale's comments from Resources, they're all very accurate. In terms of when it's going to be introduced, as usual, Councillor Nightingale, the intention is to introduce this now, so that it's almost effectively a trial run before the next set of municipal local elections, and then from May 2027, this would be, the absolute in stone policy of the council. But the intention is to implement it now. In terms of the who pays for it question, I was at Resources Scrutiny, although I'm not a member. I was there in attendance as a cabinet member, and I do know there was quite a debate about this, and it was my opinion also that the majority, not all, but the majority of the committee seemed to support the idea that the council should pay rather than the councillors. But I think as a cabinet, we have tried to balance both sides of both the Resources Committee and also the motion that was passed by all of us here. And the motion that was passed by all of us here suggested that councillors should pay for it. So on balance, we've kept the report as was in terms of the full council motion as previous. In terms of the right to appeal, I think that exists for one critical reason, which is that a criminal record check that shows a previous offence is not an automatic debar from sitting on a committee. It is only where the particular offence would be something that was relevant to those committees and the capacity of the member to serve on those committees. So I think an example was given previously by a legal officer, which was a conviction for shoplifting, while potentially not ideal if somebody has travelled to Damascus, would not automatically exclude a member from applying for a children or adults style panel or cabinet member's position. That's why the appeal exists, in case there is any of that subjectivity that needs to be discussed with the monitoring officer, and then later if unhappy with the appeals panel. So I hope that helps, but the report we have in front of us is unamended from the previous full council motion, except for the addition of the cabinet member for adults and children in terms of the enhanced checks. So thank you, members. I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Move then to agenda item 10 to receive reports. Oh, sorry, my fault. If we move to the vote, please, for the report. All those in favour? Carried. Those against? Carried. Yep. Still carried, 2 against. So we'll move to agenda item 10, which is to receive reports from the portfolio holder. Today's report is the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. This is a question and answer session. Councillor Quartermain.
Is that because I stood up? Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is the annual report for Highways and Transport. So when people think about highways and transport, they tend to think about potholes and buses. And to be fair, our residents are very good at reminding us about potholes and buses. But whether it's the roads, pathways, or transport along our coast or countryside, or simply expecting our drainage system to function correctly, this portfolio underpins daily life across Redcar and Cleveland. When I took over this portfolio 3 years ago, I had 3 priorities in mind: fixing more roads, building a stronger service, and securing a fairer share of funding that this borough deserves and needs. Over this last term, I believe we've made strong progress towards these. On my first priority, Madam Mayor, improving the condition of our roads, the most visible progress can be seen on the ground. Consistent with previous years, the team have delivered significant resurfacing and patching works. 123,000 square metres of carriageway and footpaths were serviced over the period. Road safety improvements continued. Public rights of way have been serviced, and important flood alleviation and coastal protection projects have progressed. Those are improvements residents see and experience every day, but some of the most important work carried out by the service is less visible. My second priority, Madam Mayor, has been to strengthen the resilience and expertise of the department. This started with relocating the team into a much improved working environment and upgrading one of the depots. Since then, the department has strengthened its operational capacity through investment in new fleet and additional specialist roles, ensuring it has the tools and skills required to meet growing demand. This has supported one of the most significant developments in recent years, which is the way technology is changing how the department manages the borough's assets. When residents look at a road, they see a road. The service sees its condition, inspection history, maintenance record, and future investment needs. Our updated assets management systems allow officers to record inspections in real time, track defects on site, and build a far more complete picture of the network than was previously possible. Over the past 3 years, officers have carried out a major program of surveying, inspection, and data verification across our highways assets. This has included mapping and verifying around 700 kilometres of roads, more than 32,000 gullies, and hundreds of structures, giving the service its most complete picture of the network to date. Because of this, the department now has a much clearer understanding of the assets it's responsible for maintaining, and every pound spent on maintenance must deliver. This is building a service fit for the future. This data-led approach helps us make earlier interventions, target investment more effectively, and improve how we plan and deliver maintenance. It also supports funding bids. I also want to highlight the innovative work being carried out by the department on resurfacing materials. Redcar and Cleveland is now being recognised nationally for its involvement in graphene-enhanced surfacing. Working with Redcar-based company Universal Matter and Tarmac, and following the initial trial work at Flats Lane, I set a clear expectation that we move into real-world testing
across our network to properly test the performance. That has included trials on a quiet residential road, Pennyman Walk in Mask, followed by use on a busier, more challenging route with surfacing issues, Lock Road in Redcar. If this material can extend the life of our roads, reduce maintenance and deliver better value for taxpayers, then it is worth properly testing in live environments. The service is also preparing to trial carbon capture biogenic asphalt, which has the potential of significantly reducing the carbon impact of highway maintenance. This is exactly the kind of practical innovation local government should be backing, but none of this happens without the dedicated and professionalism of officers. I want to place on record my thanks to everyone working across highways, engineering, fleet, parking and public rights of way. This is a relatively small team managing a vast and complex portfolio of responsibilities. Residents see the finished result, but often the work behind it, from flooding, snow and ice, the storm damage to highway defects, coastal issues and major infrastructural projects. Officers continue to demonstrate professionalism, expertise and commitment. They deserve recognition for the work set out in this report. My third priority, Madam Mayor, has been ensuring Redcar and Cleveland receives the infrastructure investment it needs and deserves. While there's much to be positive about, there are also challenges that must be addressed. The most significant of these remains funding. I've consistently raised concerns that Redcar and Cleveland does not receive the fair share of highways maintenance funding through the TVCA. Given the scale, geography and complexity of the network we are responsible for maintaining. We are in part largely a rural and coastal borough with aging infrastructure and increasing pressures from climate change and rising costs. Despite this, maintenance funding has not kept pace with those demands, and as a result, the council has had to rely on prudential borrowing to support essential works. I've raised these issues through the Tees Valley Transport Committee and directly with the TVCA because I believe our residents should receive a fair and transparent allocation of investment that reflects local need. Also, in my view, elements of the CRCS and emerging TCR program still do not reflect a balanced pipeline of deliverable schemes across all parts of the Tees Valley, including Redcar and Cleveland. That said, I do want to acknowledge that recent engagement with the TVCA has been constructive. There is a clearer willingness to listen to the issues being raised, and I am hopeful this will translate into a more equitable approach to future investment decisions. Looking ahead, I will continue to press for fair funding settlement, particularly as we move into the next phase of the programme and seek to secure a more sustainable long-term position for highways maintenance in this borough. On public transport, I also want to be clear that partnership working must operate as a genuine partnership. There have been occasions where service charge changes and operational decisions have been communicated late in the process, or in some cases presented to the public before full engagement with the council and TVCA has taken place. This creates confusion and makes effective planning more difficult. Recent decisions underline the importance of proper engagement between the partnership in decision making, particularly when changes affect rural and coastal connectivity. I will continue to raise these issues to ensure decisions are more transparent, better coordinated, and reflect the need of local communities. Looking ahead, the pressures on local infrastructure are not going away. Climate change, aging assets, funding constraints, and skills shortages will continue to test the system. Despite this, I believe the department is in a stronger position than it was a few years ago. It now has better information, improved systems, growing expertise, and a clearer understanding of its assets. Madam Mayor, when highways and transport works well, people do not think about them. They simply get on with their lives. It is only when infrastructure fails that its importance is fully realised. This department's ultimate task is to not let that happen. This report shows the work taking place every day to maintain, improve, and future-proof the infrastructure that keeps Redcar and Cleveland moving, and the progress made against the priorities I set for this portfolio. I therefore ask members to note the report and join me in thanking all the officers involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quarterman. Councillor Nightingale.
And thank you very much for that very comprehensive report, Councillor Quartermain. And can I thank you also for your visit to the Longbank estate in the Ormsby ward fairly recently. Just hope that there will be some progress as a result of that. And can I also congratulate the staff and you and everyone involved in trying to work under such difficult conditions. I've got two particular aspects I want to look at. On page 65 it says there's insufficient funds, and I fully sympathise with the points you've just made about this. And on page 77 in paragraph 6 you say that there will be a reduction in volume and quality of work as a result of the lack of funds, presumably. Why is it then that we have the resources on roads and transport in this area, which is so incredibly important, being squeezed out? The second point I want to make, and I want to urge you, if possible, to push in this area for some real changes. Our area, and probably several other areas, are suffering at the moment from the work being done by public utilities. Not only is the disruption to people moving about the area, but also people not being able to get out of their drive or even get onto their drive, for example on High Bank Road in Ormsby, but also people not on Orchard Way, for example, in Sunnyfield or in Ormsby, not being able to have their bins collected at the right time, and that has really created difficulty. We've now got the start of more work on Ormsby Bank, and some of this work was actually going on when work is going on in Martin as well. I think we should be pushing the public utilities, one, to rent out the council's estate when they use it, two, to ensure that they're restored to the proper standard, and lines down footpaths are not sufficiently higher quality to be done. And I understand that the utilities do have to pay for the cost of a permit. Perhaps you could tell the Councillor Quartermain, what the cost of those permits is and whether it is adequate for the disruption and the almost destruction of the infrastructure that is on our roads and footpaths that they cause.
Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you for your question. In terms of resources, what I'm trying to pick up there is, we've got resources right across Redcar and Cleveland, and they're distributed fairly to whatever the requests are. As far as I'm concerned, our department works professionally and unbiasedly, and we put them wherever those reactively or proactively. We put those resources where they're needed. In terms of the utilities, I've been up in that area, and I always use that expression, you can't make omelettes without breaking eggs. It just feels like they're making a lot of omelettes up there, doesn't it? There's a lot of streets there that seem to be up in the air, and I've seen the images coming out of people's driveways and even their front gates, and it looks to me quite a trying situation. We do have inspectors that go up there quite regularly, and they have got the powers to issue penalties where they feel that the site isn't appropriate to the need. I don't know what the permit cost is. I think it varies probably depending on the size of the project, but we can find that information out and whether or not that has a Italian regard. But just keep, if you like, I've seen those personal complaints as well. Keep those complaints coming up. We'll keep sending the inspectors up there. But I do sympathise with residents at the moment. I don't know how long that project is going to go on for. I hope it's going to be finished soon, but yeah, I had a difficulty driving about there. I saw it firsthand. Thank you.
Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Quartermain, for your report, and thank you as well for visiting Flats Lane. I know you met with Paul McInnes the other week, and that's really much appreciated. And I'll say as well, you always You know, you always engage whenever we raise concerns about highways. Do absolutely appreciate that, so thank you. There's just two issues that come to mind for me, really. One that arose this year was we had, obviously, highways as a consultee on any planning application. We had this planning application in Normanby, and appreciate planning's not your, you know, not your portfolio, but the fact highways as a consultee does come into it. And for me, it just feels like highways. We had this application for 234 houses on Skipper's Lane. Those who know Skipper's Lane know it's a tiny residential lane. And highways laughed at Councillor McInnes when he rose, you know, said in the planning committee, whether you looked at expanding the road capacity. It just felt like they hadn't given any consideration at all. And I feel like that's probably, you know, I know other councils have raised that too with planning applications. It feels like highways aren't really proactive enough. Very difficult situation for you as a portfolio holder to act on, but I wouldn't be doing my job, I don't think, if I didn't raise the issue here. The second thing is road safety, and again, it's an issue of proactiveness. You visited Flats Lane, again, really appreciate it and really appreciate the officers coming down. But the feedback we've had afterwards is, due to the data, they can't make the road safer. Basically, they're saying, oh, well, you know, our data says there's only been one accident this year. The issue here is that the councils, whoever's reporting, I think it's the police, right? The police report accidents to the council. Not all of them are getting reported. Again, a really difficult issue for you as portfolio holder. But when we're basing road safety on data, if the data's imperfect, you know, what hope do we have of making our roads safer? So just two things I wanted to raise with you. Appreciate they're both difficult challenges. But yeah, no, thank you.
Councillor Pugh, Councillor Quartermain.
And thank you for those comments. Yeah, in terms of planning, you're right, it's not my portfolio, but I do sit on the regulatory committee, and you know, I do see these applications come back and forth, and on these housing developments too. And you know, a lot of the questions that I pose as a committee member are on the detail of these applications that go through. Quite often, I feel like the applications are quite flimsy. So what happens is, a lot of conditions get attached to all this, which is quite vague. And I feel like a lot of the applications that we have come through, the conditions do a lot of the heavy lifting, and that obviously then transfers into delegated powers. I won't get into a lot of that, and I can't obviously comment on any existing ones that are coming up or be predetermined. But I do appreciate what you're saying there, and things like roads, obviously, and waste disposal and all kinds of different aspects comes into that. But if there's any specific concerns that you have, you can always email me, and we can take that up with the planning department as well, and the building inspectors, etc. In terms of road safety, I did come out with Councillor McGuinness. It's a tricky one, because you know, we have a huge network there, and some of the roads are faster than others, and some seem to be more of a traffic hotspot than an accident hotspot than others. And we do have a very safe, quite a very safe network compared to a lot of areas actually. So whenever a road comes into question, we do go out and take the surveys, do the testing of, and they have to meet a certain criteria. There's also difficulties when you've got bends, etc. The topography's in a certain way that you can't put things like, you know, certain safety measures, because you're actually creating more of a danger for people, especially if they're used to that. Going back to the specifics, we did go up and have a look at measures that we can put in place further along coming off of Flats Lane. A way of slowing down that road before you get to that part of it. And I think maybe we should follow that determined line by the engineers who have prescribed what they believe will work there, and then see what happens from that. And I appreciate what you're saying as well. You know, it's okay to stand here and say we haven't got any accidents there. I don't know what you're talking. But yeah, of course, a lot of it's collisions rather than somebody getting injured. And a lot of collisions are sorted out on the roadside, aren't they, with insurance? So they don't necessarily get reported. It's not always a true reflection, so I appreciate
Thank you, Councillor Quarterman. Before I bring the next speaker in, I've got a screen full, so my last question I'll take will be from Councillor Barnes. Councillor Steve Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Perhaps we have said, Carl, just listen. I'm talking to you. Perhaps we have safe roads because we've got so many potholes in them that it slows everybody down. Have you ever thought of that? You mentioned driving along a nice road that people don't notice, they just take it for granted. Believe you me, in my ward, we've got so many bad roads that we do really appreciate the good roads, such as through the Charltons area, from Skelton up to Lingdale Crossroads, and we're hoping for more. But we have a great problem there. Places like Margrove Road, places like the route from Boosbeck up to Lingdale. Stanghow Road needs finishing off, and I understand we're going to do some, I can't quite remember the phrase, something like sustained patching or something. It's not quite like just chucking a spade full of tarmac into the hole. It gives you the impression at least it's going to last a bit. And then I think next year, it is now next financial year, we're hoping to complete the job on Stanghow Road, which I must admit, if that is true, is very welcome. But the thing that struck me this week is the attitude of our officers. I think since we've had the present director, that attitude of officers towards members and the public has greatly improved. I've had a drive around my ward with Neil Shaw, showing him all the problems. Needless to say, we were there for a week looking at them. There were so many. But yesterday I was really impressed. Kilton Lane has been closed, or was going to be closed, I think, for 3 days. And I got this polite email yesterday asking
Councillor Kerr, have you got a question in this at the moment, please? I'm assuming that the leaders overruled you, Madam Mayor. I got this polite letter from the officer in charge of improving Kilton Lane, apologising that the work was going to go on one more day. And I've never had anything like that before. You know, it's so nice to have a good relationship between officers. I'll put it as a question. Is it not true, Councillor Quartermain, that it is wonderful that when officers and members can work together in a polite and helpful way in order to improve the road network in our area? Councillor Quartermain.
I'll take that. That's good, isn't it? Yeah, and thank you very much for those comments. And I'm sure the officers, some of the officers are in here today, and will pass that information back down as well. It's really appreciated.
I was shocked. I've never had such a polite email from an officer in my life.
And you know, I think that does reflect the team that we've got there. As I said in my speech there, and over the course, when I first took on this role, a lot of our team all resided in one depot. When the depot was kind of falling apart, it was portal cabins. It wasn't very nice at all. Stopped that right away and got them into a much better working environment. I think that's probably reflective of what's happening there as well, and they probably work a lot more effectively because of that. But they're a lot happier as well. We're training everybody up as well, so. Yeah, I mean, you're fast becoming my priority ward councillor, you know. So, No, I do appreciate the comments that you're making. I do appreciate the fact that none of our roads are perfect, you know, and it's a fluid thing. You know, 1 minute they look great, and then the next minute a bit of rain, and before you know it's all popping open. You've never mentioned Cow Close Lane, by the way. I was always hoping that you might mention the fact that we resurfaced that, and quite a difficult lane to do, but.
Can we move to the next question, please?
Anyway, yep. Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Sue Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Quartermain, for your report. At the bottom of page, I think it's 56, there's reference to structural assessments of council assets. I want to refer to one particular council asset, which is South Bank Railway Station Bridge, which has now been closed for, I think it's 2 years or getting on for 2 years. The situation has been that over this last few days, when all the rest of everybody else has been going up to the beach at Redcar and Saltburn to enjoy themselves in the sun, had you have wanted to get a train from South Bank to do exactly the same, you wouldn't have been able to, because you can't get across to that platform on the bridge without doing a mile's walk round of detour. If you are trying to go to work at Teesport or on any of the businesses on the other side of the railway line, you have to do that same mile detour if you're coming down Normanby Road and you want to use that bridge as the way through. So quite frankly, Councillor Quartermain, I think this situation is completely unacceptable. Councillor Fairley, your colleague, went to a Tees Valley Transport Committee the other day and managed to extract from them a commitment that the transfer of the bridge to Network Rail, who will then do the improvements, will happen at the end of June. However, I do note from your report that there is still no information in here about when this is going to happen. Could you tell me, please, has the bridge been transferred to Network Rail? And if so, when will the work take place? And if it hasn't, when is it going to happen? Because we really cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, and thank you for your question. Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and part of the problem was about whose responsibility it was in the first place. And part of the problem is, again, a lack of funding to the council to be able to afford to do that work. So the driver has always been to look to Network Rail and TVCA to either provide the funding we need to be able to do that job, or to take it on themselves. And you're right, up to that last update that you've got is the update I've got. I did request a further update just to see if it were any further over the line, and this is what I've received. Transfer to Network Rail has not yet formally completed, and it's likely to take some time. So I'm not sure where you're getting June from, particularly as the footbridge interfaces with unregistered land. However, Tees Valley Combined Authority, Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council and Network Rail legal teams are working at pace to agree heads of terms and a memorandum of understanding. This will allow works to progress in parallel while the formal transfer and legal agreements are concluded. In terms of funding and approvals, the Combined Authority is progressing at pace to develop a proportionate business case for the works. While progress is positive, funding cannot be formally approved until that business case has been completed and endorsed. And on timescales, further clarity on programme and delivery will follow once agreements with Network Rail are finalised. At this stage, a definitive timeline cannot be confirmed. However, Network Rail is currently procuring a contractor to undertake the works, so there is optimism that delivery can commence in the near term. That's as much as I've got. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Quartermain, in your portfolio, your report, you mentioned the public right-of-way team. and I'd like to express my thanks to that team for all the work they do in Skelton West. We have some lovely footpaths in Skelton West. Also, my thanks that they're improving access for wheelchair users and families, for example, with buggies who are using the pathways for safe walking routes. But we seem to have sort of come across a bit of a block here on Boroughgate, whereby the old styles are no longer in use or really unsafe to use and are going to be replaced eventually, but I'm wondering when that work will start.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you, Councillor Earl, and thank you for your comments there. I don't know this specific issue, I'm afraid to say, but I will take that forward and find out and get a date for you. Boroughgate, Siles. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind emailing me that across, that'd be great. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Peter Grogan.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Councillor Quartermain, thank you for the report. Also, like echoing everyone else that's been in the chamber, coming to visit us on Westdyke Road and the corner of Woodside. I've seen you in more feeds on my Facebook anywhere than any other time. I think I see you more than my own family half the time on Facebook because you're everywhere. Behave, Dave. Right. Just a couple of quick questions, that's all. You mentioned drainage and flooding in your report, but I remember about 18 months ago, beginning of 2025, we got a grant of 950,000 for Yerby, you know, for the Environmental Agency Flood Defence Grant. There's no mention of that or any progress on that, so if you've got any update, that would be appreciated. And also, Plantation Road. It's one of the bugbearers that everyone speaks to on everyone that's in Kirkleatham Ward and not in Kirkleatham Ward. It's been on the scale of getting done for, since this vague timetable was actually put out, 10 of the year, and we're hoping it's going to be a full resurface instead of more patchwork. The patchwork does not last very long on such a heavy duty corner that's so heavily driven across. So if you've got any updates on that, it'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grogan. Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll get an update on the 950,000 for the Yerby. I think some of it went into the flooding of the field, so that, you know, there was kind of a flood alleviation. But I can get hold of the specifics and exactly the detail on that. Plantation Road, yeah, I appreciate your frustration on that. Every time I drive it as well, I'm looking at it as well. It is on the programme for next year. I'm not sure if it's a full resurfacing. I get the feeling it is, but we can discuss that, I think. Okay, but it is part of this next term. 2026, 2020, this next term. Is that better? But yeah, I mean, it is a vague programme, and it's done intentionally because it's a 6-year rolling programme. And over the course of the time, some roads deteriorate faster than others. So the inspectors will go back out and look at those roads and determine a timeline for each one. That's what it is. I'm sure there's other members in here who will also say about their areas and their roads. But I know, I drive it as well, it's frustrating. But yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Gemma Joy.
Apologies. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Quartermain, for your report. Oh, I'm really high. I was going to ask about road safety, but Councillor Pugh asked, and I think I echo those issues he has about the gap between some of the data that we use to qualify for road safety enhancements. Sometimes there's a disconnect, especially things like crash map that are way out of date. So I think there maybe is a piece there that would help us safeguard some of our communities. One easy question: the carbon capture bionic asphalt, thank you. What's the time scale, please, for introducing it? And is that our funding or is that external funding? And then there's another question about the drainage issue. Working with Northumbrian Water, I know our officers are in regular contact with Northumbrian Water, and speaking from Gisborough, there's some pinch points that are constantly flooded. So it's not the fault of the gully cleansers. It's not the fault of us as a local authority. We are doing all we can. How do we push Northumbrian Water to put better infrastructure in? Some of them are antiquated systems that clearly are getting overburdened. What can we do? I know our colleagues as officers are doing all they can, but I feel like they're often firefighting. So what can we do to push Northumbrian Water? Because that's where the problem lies, not with how we're treating the acute issues. Thank you.
Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, on the asphalt, I mean, that's imminent stuff. It's going to be funded by us. I don't have a date for when we're going to start doing that work, but I kind of feel like there's some preliminary work already being, but I can get that information back across to you. On Northumbrian Water and their pipe work, I mean, I need the specifics of the project, that the information that you're giving me there, so send that through, that's fine. But I do know that over the next number of years, Northumbrian Water are looking to update a lot of their pipe work that runs through Redcar and Cleveland. So I think in future years we're going to have a lot of disruption, but we're going to have a lot more capacity. So again, it's eggs and omelets. I get the feeling a lot of that is a lot of the coastal areas, so it'd be Redcar, Mask, Saltburn. So again, you want to be part of that program, you need to be shouting it up as a ward councillor as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Quartermain, for your comprehensive report and also for the briefing earlier, which was very useful. Thank you. Right at the beginning of your report, you mentioned recruitment challenges. Now, I know we are very good with apprenticeships, but can you assure us that we are doing everything that is possible with the schools and colleges and with our own adult learning service as well to address those skills shortages? Thank you. On page 49, you mention investing to save in new plant, and you mention a bobcat planer. Is that right? No idea what that is, but in due course, I'm sure we would be interested in the savings that are realised from this approach. Okay, in due course. Page 65, we've mentioned funding already, and we talked about it earlier. The Transport for City Regions allocation, our allocation has remained at 17 million, despite the money to the TVCA increasing from 310 to 978 million. Now, I know that you are pushing for more, but if you could say a little bit more about that, it might be helpful. And then finally, on page 74, you mentioned the transport strategy, which is being developed. And from what you have said in the report, this appears to be underway for the first time. Now, surely this must mean that there have been lost opportunities, particularly around settlements for Section 106 monies, which you mentioned in the report. If we haven't been able to specify our infrastructure requirements due to the lack of that strategy, which is the point that Councillor Pugh was making as well. So in Gisborough, for example, all the development towards Nunthorpe, we have had to wait for the active travel monies to secure crossings on Stokesley Road. Okay, so I do welcome the development of that strategy and the rapid development of it, if that's possible. Now, finally, I realise I don't know a great deal about your portfolio, despite being on my second year of the growth scrutiny. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot that is making its way onto that scrutiny. So that is something for us all to consider, I think, in this last year. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I'll try and be succinct if I can. I think there's five points there. Apprenticeships. We absolutely are doing that already, and I think we're going to have to. On the list there, you'll see there's a number of jobs. Some are filled, some are still vacant, and they've been vacant for a long time. It's hard to get those kind of level of kind of skills and stuff. So, as part of the program, we are training in-house to try and bring bring staff up to a certain standard, and as that's happening as well, we'll be bringing more apprentices in and training other people up. But it's a really important thing that we do that, and we do. The savings on the Bobcat, I haven't got any figures in front of me for that. The Bobcat is the picture on page 49. There's pictures there. Basically, it does a patch of resurfacing. All of that now is all our staff are trained on that now. So anyone can pick that sit in there and pick that up and do that work. The comparison is getting a contractor in to do the work instead, and obviously that ends up costing us a lot of money. But we can get a comparison to see how that's working. My understanding is it's working very well, and we're going to be making a hell of a saving to the point where we should buy another one as well. Okay. Yeah, the funding. You know, I've mentioned that in my speech as well, and it's in the report. You know, I've been disappointed about that ever since I did my first speech here, and my understanding was that we were getting 17 million. I think that works out 3.4 million over a 5-year period. And from what I understand from my briefings, you know, we're not even scratching the surface with that. You know, we're spending about 2 million a year, pretty much to stand still. So when it comes to things like South Bank pedestrian bridge and Grinkle Lane and Dundas slipway and all these kind of things, there just isn't the funding there for the council. Because we haven't got the maintenance money. So, you know, and when they came out with the new announcement for the new amount of funding, which was exactly the same as the last 5 years, so 10 years of the same and not index linked, you know, obviously, you know, I was bursting a blood vessel. So I have had those conversations. It does look promising, but I can't really say at the moment because nothing's been agreed. But I am hoping that we are going to get a much stronger allocation going forward. Strategy, I'll pick up with you on that because I think it's a lot more detailed answer than I can probably provide in 5 minutes. And scrutiny, I agree with you actually. You know, I think what happens with scrutiny, no, I do agree with you absolutely. I think what happens with scrutiny is a lot of the scrutinies are around the funding that comes from the council. When it comes to highways, a lot of our funding comes from the Department of Transport and then through the TVCA. So it kind of goes under the radar a little bit, I think. But I do agree. I think, you know, the scrutiny committees do the job it's supposed to do. It's a really vital instrument of the council, and all of us should be held to task and accountable. So I totally agree with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Quartermain, your first line on your report when you were giving your presentation was you're really pleased with the progress that you're making dealing with potholes in roads across the council's network. And I almost fell off my chair laughing. If you ask residents anywhere in the borough, apart from the roads that have just been nicely resurfaced, there's a massive problem with roads across our whole network.